To him. I had a chance to do a one-on-one with Madan a few weeks back, and I learned a little bit about his personal background and who he was. Today I'm happy to hear, I'm looking forward to hear more about his professional background. So anyways, everybody on their feet, we have a tradition in GNA for our guest speakers to come back to the end of the room and make the grand entrance. Everybody on their feet to welcome our speaker, guest, Madan.
Either way, how should I handle this? Thank you. You have nothing to talk about.
That's not Madan.
So I have this little notepads and I brought some pens, just in case you have a blinding flash of the obvious. If you want to write down $1 million idea, you're welcome to. So I'll give Christy a second. That's all right.
Thank you, Christy.
And if somebody needs a pen, I brought some extra pens. Yeah, there's no charge for this.
Do we have to sign a disclosure statement?
Not today.
Go ahead.
Okay, good. So first and foremost, thank you GNA for giving me this opportunity. I want to acknowledge that being able to speak here is a privilege. And I'm glad that I earned that privilege, and I'm really glad to be here. So what I'm going to talk about is what I see in the real life and what people do or don't do when they get into what I call legal situations. And what I find is that people who get into legal situations, it's no different than being in certain kinds of personal or business situations that lead up to a conflict. So my goal is to empower you and just point out little things. If done differently, they can help you avoid conflicts. Whether that conflict turns into a personal conflict, a business conflict, or actually a legal conflict, that depends on how effectively you follow these steps. Little background. I'm Madan Ahluwalia. So your first homework would be to go home and remember how to say it correctly. And if you want some lessons, I think Rosie says my name the best.
Thanks, Madan.
So first and foremost, so let me think about what I was going to say. See how that changes the dynamics? Right? What I find people doing is not engaging in real thinking. And you might be thinking, what the hell is he talking about? We think all the time. So what I like to submit to you is actual thinking is very, very different than having thoughts. You know, if you were to be quiet for a second, your 10 different thoughts, other than being here, listening to me, paying attention, are gonna, cross your mind. So what I'm suggesting is think deeply and engage in critical thinking, so that you can think about your business, the situation you're getting in, who is the other person involved, what is the person's background, how you'll be able to connect to the person. Because if you think, then you can move on to the next point, which is plan. How many of you have a written business plan or any plan about what you want to do? So I see about 7 or 8 people. So how many of us have heard that people, they don't plan to fail, but they just fail to plan?
Yeah.
Right? So Harvard, they did a research, and what they discovered is that 3% of the people, they succeed anyways, because they are naturally smart, they're born as a genius, or they're just, blessed, right? The remaining 97%, only 27% of them, they had a written plan. And in the 5 years after graduation, made 10 times more, than the people who did not have a written plan. So when you plan, the biggest idea I would like to share with you is when you plan, we all want to get the best results, right? And we're so focused on the positive results and the profitable results coming out. And what we do sometimes in a haste or in our excitement is that we fail to plan for the worst. Like if things don't go well, but things don't go as the way you like them to. So part of the planning might be, how are you going to structure your business relationship? How are you going to structure your business? Is it going to be simple proprietorship? Is it going to be a DBA? Is it going to be a joint venture? Is it going to be an S corporation? So you need to plan with the best case scenario and the worst case scenario. Because each way you do business is going to have an effect on you later on, depending on whether you're profitable or you're running in red and you have to close your business. And once you have done the thinking and the planning, communicate. Who are you going to communicate with? Who are your power partners? Who are your clients? Who are your suppliers? And communication is an art. And one thing I love about GNA is that the way they promote their one-on-ones. You guys have thought about the situation, you guys have planned around the situation, and then you're communicating how to do one-on-ones. And one of the biggest things that gets promoted is listen to the other person. Don't bark from the other person about your business. The best thing you can do is listen to the other person and try to understand how something, a situation, occurs to the other person. That's the reason God gave us 2 years and 1 month. Because before you say something, let us say I'm talking to Paul. Just the way human mind works. I'm already thinking of a response. I'm already thinking of something I want to say because I'm so good or I'm so experienced. and don't forget the goal. The goal, what do you think is the goal of communication? Elizabeth?
Sharing ideas and listening.
Yes. So eventually what we want to do through communication, you want to pick on it?
Just I'll go first.
Send your message across
Yes.
clearly.
Yes.
Communication.
That is part of the process, right? Ultimate goal of a good communication is to get on the same page, right? So many times, like when I'm talking to person says something and I say, oh yeah, so this is what you mean? And the person comes back and says, no, that's not what I mean. And then they add 1 or 2 more things. So the ultimate goal of communication is what we call in the legal world, meeting of the minds.
Right.
The last thing you want to do is be misunderstood. And after you have gone through that process, make a record. Right? If I'm going to be providing a service to you, right? We talk, we reach an agreement, we have a meeting of the mind, we need to record it. You can record it so many different ways. People get hung up on, legal contract. Just remember, legal contract is nothing but a nicely typewritten document for which you have paid a lawyer $500. At the end of the day, it is on a piece of paper, and all you gotta do is document everything and sign. So what I'm suggesting to you is that you don't have to go through the fancy process. Save $500. Sit down with whosoever you're doing business with, take an old-fashioned piece of paper, a pen, write it down, put a date, sign it, and you're done. So one thing to remember is that when we record something, it has to rise to the level of a legally acceptable document, right? And it has certain requirements. So some of the requirements I already talked about. It has to be written, it has to be signed, it has to be dated. And whatever is in the 4 corners of the document, that is what controls. Which means that if you have been communicating and you have written down the highlights of your understanding, they better be in this final document. you can't come back and say, oh, well, look at this 5 emails and we really discussed it and this is what we really wanted and now, for some reason it missed out because we made a mistake, right? I mean, unless you were really hallucinating and you have some medical record to prove that you were on some sort of drugs or something, it's not going to work, right? So just make sure to take time, and all of this takes time. Perform. It's a very important legal concept. Non-performance is the biggest reason for people getting into trouble. If I say I'm gonna come meet you at a certain time, we have an agreement, right? I better show up. If I call you to cancel at the last minute, or if I say something came up and I can't meet and let us reschedule, right? That's non-performance at a very basic level. So non-performance could be at a higher level, it could be at a different level. Let us say you're in network marketing and you have an upline that says, you know what, once you join, I'm going to do this, this, and this for you. Okay, and once you sign the person, you don't show up. Right? That is breach of contract. At a very simple level, it's a breach of your personal word. Guess what? People get annoyed. People, they lose respect for you. And people being people, they want to escalate it to the next level, which is to turn into a fight. A fight is no different than a lawsuit. Lawsuit is just a dignified fight. It happens at a different level. And you feel good about getting a lawyer involved and writing the big fat check because you can afford it. But you really need to go that route. All of that can be avoided by a simple act of performance. It could be showing up, it could be acknowledging your mistake, it could be going back to the communication, right? Because we all want to do well, right? But once we get the project, we could have a limitation of time, we could have a limitation of skill, we could have a limitation of resources. All of those things, they can affect your performance. And this ties into what I alluded to before, take responsibility. And I'm saying avoid denial. Denial is didn't even know, I know it's spelled as K, right? Didn't even know I am lying. A good example is this morning. When I ordered this flip chart, I sent it to Staples. And I didn't realize that this is supposed to have a, this back support. So my wife shows up and it wasn't there. So whose mistake is it? It's my mistake, right? I'm the one who placed the order. I failed to give instructions. So my wife had to spend extra 15-20 minutes, and of course they're very nice and they fixed the problem. And then we got into another situation. She had to go to Millbrae to drop her car off to the dealership, and 280 and 85 they were all jammed. And now she's running late because she had to go do something for me. So when she calls me, right, what do I need to do? I need to acknowledge that I was wrong. Right? I need to acknowledge that I caused that delay. Right? So all of that, falls into the category of takes responsibility, because if you take the responsibility and you go back to the previous steps of communicating, you can avoid a problem. So this situation can happen with a client. Right? This situation can happen with your downline. This situation can happen with your supplier. So take responsibility, identify what you could have done differently to not that situation happen, and then try to fix it. This is a big one for me. Very big one. Collaborate and follow advice. Okay? So I have listed certain professionals, CPA, insurance agents, financial planners. And I did that because these professionals, they play a big role in what I see in other people's lives. They have definitely played a big role in my life, right? So pay attention. It says collaborate and follow underlined advice. It doesn't say get the advice and don't follow it. Right? Now if you're going to open a business, right, do you think there is going to be a premises liability issue? there are going to be some general liability issues. If you are a professional like myself or like Elias or Christy, you need professional liability insurance, right? Get the right advice and follow it. I recently became a client of Elias. He's my insurance agent. And he reviewed my policy and he gave me advice. And it turns out, one of the policies was set up, it wasn't the right way. He gave me advice. Now I could have gone into my attorney mode and my Mr. Know-it-all mode and say, I know better. No. I followed his advice and we made the change, and it is in my benefit. So similarly, if you're getting into a business and it's going to be a joint venture or it's going to be a project that's going to go on for a while, and there's a lot of money at stake, maybe you need a second to die insurance policy. So connect with your insurance agent, get the right advice, and make it happen, because otherwise, when the problem happens, it's a little bit too late. Any questions on this? So I just like to share about what to write at bare minimum if you get into a situation where you have to write a contract. It's Alex, right? Okay. So one of the things Alex can easily relate to is that when you guys sign a real estate contract, right? They talk about these things. They talk about attorney fees, they talk about ADR methods, and they talk about venue. So the most important thing is attorney fees, right? Under the current law, if you have a contract and the contract is silent for attorney fees, and let us say we go into a fight, we can hire our own lawyers and one of us will win. But we both end up paying the attorney fees and the litigation costs. However, by engaging in one simple act and writing in one small line, which says the prevailing party, in the case of a dispute, the prevailing party will recover the attorney fees and costs. So it's in writing, and the law allows you to recover the attorney fees and costs. What that means at a very simple level, it'll keep the other person honest. Right? Because you might be in a situation where the other person has more money than you, or he's just more stupid than you. I don't know. They could just want to fight for the sake of fighting. But if there's attorney fees clause, he goes to an attorney will ask him to reconsider and reevaluate the situation. So it's very, very important. ADR methods, and this is a big one for me. ADR stands for alternate dispute resolution methods, right? And the examples of ADR methods, they exist in our life on a day-to-day basis. Let us say you have a fight with your brother. Who do you go to? Your mom, right? Or your dad, or your other brother, right? And what do? Yeah, they facilitate. I like Elias as well. Yeah, that was a good answer. That's what I would do to my brother. So they facilitate. So that is a very common example of an ADR method. Other examples of ADR methods are private settlement officer, mediation, arbitration. So you can exercise any of those. And by inserting a clause, which you can easily duplicate from any internet website, by inserting an ADR clause that in the event of a default, we will go to mediation through American Arbitration Association. And those guys are retired judges, they're attorneys who have been in business for at least 10 years. Or you can just do an old-fashioned way, you can appoint somebody as a mediator, right? And I think this happens in real estate contracts, right? You always have to sign initial, for mediation and arbitration. And venue is also very important. So venue goes back to the legal concept of jurisdiction. So as you might already know that whenever there's a dispute, the lawsuit has to be brought in a place where the contract was signed or where the person you're suing lives, right? But let us say you and I get into a contract, okay, and you're originally from Southern California or you're from Florida, and things are not working out for you, and all of a sudden you move down, down Southern California, in Florida. So all of a sudden, I have to find a court over there, I have to find a judge over there, and I have to sue you over there. So you can easily handle that part by designating the local county in your area as a place where the lawsuit will happen. Make sense? Yeah. Any questions? That looks like that.
We're writing it down, we're writing.
Oh, okay. And go back and repeat the process and check in. When NASA launches a shuttle into the space, you can imagine that 1 millimeter difference, could put the shuttle on a different course, right? So they have all the engineers, they have all the technology. What they engage in is a course correction on a regular basis. Because when you get into a situation, a contract, a business, you have different circumstances and different considerations that dictate what you want to do, right? But once you get going, you might have amazing successes. You might have miserable failures, right? If you come back and you reassess your situation and go back to the basics of thinking, planning, making a record, all of the good stuff, right? Will help you scale a course. And the biggest thing for me is, like I'm talking on the phone, or I start thinking and all of a sudden I miss the exit.
I've done that.
Right? So if I don't say the course, if I don't pay attention on a regular basis, I can end up somewhere else. And trust me, I can. Yeah, when I bought my car, I told the dealer, I said, I don't care if the car has wheels or not, I need the GPS. So this is the 11th and the bonus point. All modes of redressing a wrong having failed, raising the soul is pious and just. I don't know. Because sometimes you want to be nice, but the other person is not. Or they underestimate. They don't think, you're going to do something. So how do you teach them a lesson? So with that, do you have any questions?
Is this information on your website?
No, it's not. But I do have a PDF, and if you're so interested, I can make it available. I might put the video on the website.
Yeah, I have a video of it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yes, sir.
John, having gone down and made mistakes in business and legal and so on, can you tell us more about the arbitration, mediation, and all that, how valuable that is in some experience?
Yes, so I will talk about the mistake I have made. I entered into a contract with a contractor friend of mine. We were going to buy a house, remodel, sell it. And he changed his mind at the last moment. He said, I just want to come in as a contractor and you pay me the money and I'll do it. Okay, so that was a mistake that I didn't plan for it. However, what I ended up doing is I ended up having a written contract. Okay, that is where, what I'm saying, I get to put it to use. And later on, when he actually did not perform the work, I was able to sue him successfully. But if I did the same thing, which is to do the business on a handshake basis, right? And another example I can think of is, I have a client who, and there are 4 partners in a restaurant. Okay, they got excited, they put in about $70,000, and 3 months later, they needed another $60,000. Now, $60,000 is not some change, right? It's another issue that they were able to afford it, but they didn't plan for it. So they had to infuse more money. Then in the process, they did not create the right record. They did not issue the share certificates. They did not have the bylaws in place. All they did was file the articles in the state of California, with the Department of Corporations. That was it. So those are the things that come up. Now regarding arbitration, what was the question?
Arbitration, mediation, the value of those experiences as opposed to lingering malaise that goes on, lawsuits and bad blood on both sides.
Right. Yeah, I'm a big proponent of ADR methods. And the reason is that when people get into legal situations, my impression is, and I I'm happy to be on camera on this. Attorneys are part of the problem. Okay, it's like you know, in the case of your fight going to your mom, and your mom is going to tell you what you want to hear, right? So attorneys, right, they also want to make money. And second thing is that when you look at any language is open to interpretation by somebody who's reading it. So everybody interprets it differently. So if you go to lawsuit, choose mediation or arbitration, and you can do it at any time. You can do it at any time. So what happens is that there are mediators and arbitrators who are retired judges, who are attorneys, who have been in business for 10 years, and they do it as a profession. So you go into a private setting, they look at all the records, they look at all the evidence, and most importantly, they talk to you and try to identify what is a practical way to solve the problem. And we have a saying in the profession that if you went to mediation or arbitration, and if both parties left unhappy, that is a successful mediation.
For the lawyers.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. So, you're talking about the documentation and creating, your own document. How important is it to have something like that just notarized, or is there a need to have it notarized? Like I could drop a document over here with Rosemary, and we take it perfectly fine, and here's the paper, and we make a copy of it. Is it still valid if it's not notarized? I mean, how valid and legal is that?
Okay, in the case of a will, that document needs to be notarized. Most of the other documents, they don't need to be notarized. However, having a document notarized is make it more official, because when you go to the notary, they have to look at your ID, they have to talk to you, they have to verify that you have read the document. So I think adds more validity to the whole process. Definitely. Any other questions? How are we doing at time? I think I was supposed to have.
Hey, you're good. You're good. Thank you, Madan.
And if you're not connected with me on Facebook, please do.
Thank you, Madan.